Yeah, so this is currently T-shirt weather for the Celts. Fred, of course, is still under wraps. The cover, I think, doesn't actually cover him, covers the tomb, I think, but Fred is still just covered by the metal. Don't know if they've cleaned him up under this thing, but he's not viewable, unfortunately, and neither are the beautiful crucifixes that you'd normally be able to see around this side. And again, you've got the view of Arthur's Seat behind you, typically, which is now obscured. The only difference I think we've worked out between Edinburgh and Birmingham is the women in Birmingham just want to kill you without ever actually speaking to you, whereas the ones in Edinburgh want to kill you eventually, but some of them sort of give you a bit of a pass at the interim and don't. So you can sort of function on a human level. So the difference between here and Birmingham is I'm fairly well armed now, so if Deborah.Argentieri wanted to be beheaded by a large sword, she's welcome to. What she could do alternatively is just sort of come to St Giles and explain her behaviour as to why she's under the impression that adult men are there to be stabbed to death for her convenience, and that then, because they're not being stabbed to death in a professional manner, that she is under the impression that everybody cares what she thinks on the subject. And when we're saying to her quite clearly, go and get police, and she's refusing to do so, I'm perfectly happy to put her in the deepest, darkest dungeon in England and leave her there for the rest of her life if found guilty after behaving like that. So the difference generally is when you're in the court service, you're used to sort of waking up daily and attacking people, but you're attacking people by proxy outside of the organisation. So these are people who hypothetically have not done what they're supposed to do, they haven't followed the law, and because I am following the law I can therefore lawfully attack them, right? So I haven't done anything wrong, and we've gone through a process where it's proxy violence, so please come up and pull this person out of their home and remove them by force because I've told them to. So various people look at my decisions and go, yep, he's right, and someone else gets violently assaulted because of my actions, and everyone in the process goes, yep, totally fine. We're introducing that externally, but internally the process should work in the same way. So if someone's in the department that doesn't be there, point out, and if they're not out, then a security guard should be coming in and physically removing them. Because of what's happened during the pandemic, because the buildings have effectively been removed and the relations have been via the technology, the meeting room game hasn't worked. So we picked up all kinds of proximal corruption, all these little crooks. Because a lot of these people are so dangerous, you can't sort of go casually into a building with these people without any kind of security or representation. I'm quite large, but I'm not a complete moron. Because Argentieri has now decided that she's responsible for security effectively for the police of Birmingham, I don't actually think she is. I don't think she's actually authorised to make that decision. I think it's down to the head of West Midlands Police, who definitionally is now either not being contacted or refusing to engage, because you can't actually refuse to get police when your court officers are telling you to. That's not really how British law works. Well, I'm saying quite clearly I need to report crime. It doesn't matter that it's quite complicated white-collar crime. Given the family background, you would expect the head of the McGrath to be quite good at rooting that kind of stuff out. And when I've got your laptop and entry into your database, which I've had externally for 17 years, and we've got an overview of the entire organisation and the entire police, because that's what we do for a living, and the family tendrils into the city, you can't actually make guys like me vanish into the ether. That's not how that works. My knowledge can't go off like a light. I know that the level of intelligence in the department is that knowledge work has no value because they can't understand it. Decisions are being taken by someone like Southall, who is operating on the level of sort of an acquisitive primate, effectively. She's sort of a lower form of life. Intelligence is a taboo subject in society, but this woman is not actually intelligent enough to have a civil adult discussion, but she'd quite like some money from the police of Birmingham. But because she's been given authority, and because that authority is tied to the proximal corruption, there is now these sort of blockages in the system. So if you think of this like indigestion, there's a large mass which is straining to come out and needs to be flushed away via cleansing waters through the human resources department of the police. But because that's been corrupt because of Peter Cheese, which I believe is now on his way out of the organisation, they've created a situation which is clearly dangerous, and that is clearly dangerous, by the way, for the police, hence the struggle to get hold of any kind of authority in the polis, because every time a new head comes in, they've got to explain what Roney's been doing, or they've got to go along with the kabuki. So past October last year, it was just kabuki. So you can go in sort of a Sovietized organisation effectively, which is run on a sort of a Potemkin village-like theatre production by Birmingham Labour that they've been honing for many years. But you've now got the sort of little boy in the Emperor's New Clothes effect, except in this case the little boy is a court officer generally the size of a tank who doesn't care what you think, is beholden to nobody, doesn't need money and just doesn't care. And in the current situation where the defence chief may be paying attention to Birmingham, given that it's now a huge risk to the entire country. If you think of this again like the sort of the children's strategy game Necromunda, with various gangs sort of fighting over this decaying ruin pumped up by sort of electronic patronage money and that kind of thing. That would be sort of a fair estimation at the moment of how the policy is run in reality. But because it's sort of this postmodernist wasteland of nonsense, the internal stuff, if you work for the polis, is very, very sort of Soviet. The stuff that comes through your laptop, if you were to question it, of course, your career would effectively sort of explode. But because we've been so thoroughly organised, it's the reverse. So because we're now in Scotland with physical safety, we can just tear them apart daily. So every day something goes into their servers. Unless they can explain it to police, they're not really the sort of people who can work in a compliance department, because their careers are going to be smoking ruins by sort of Wednesday if they're not complying, because you can't behave like that in Britain. Not how this works. But I'm trying to think of a way out of it for us. So the only solution is, again, as we've outlined last year, is John Cotton's latest managing director, and probably Graham Betts as well, Gold Commander himself, walking into Sutton Police Station as suggested, and having a chat with some of their guys about David Gilbourne's work and his effects on the policy of Birmingham, because we were raising the alarm in 2020 via Scriven. So Scriven went off to Birmingham and came back with the documents and proclaimed it to be utter nonsense, and there was no problem, as did Joanna Campbell in the office of the city solicitor. So between those two people, the lawyers and the bureaucrat, they're both responsible. In Scriven's case, he's an AD, so the criminal responsibility will be the guy above him logically. But we've had a rotation since then, so Hewin's legged this, various spivs have come through. You've currently got Canning, who went along with the nonsense for money. So you get Canning out the door via the police, get a new person in after Cheese has gone, audit their records, and when I say audit, you get someone like Helen in. So obviously I'm going to have to do it, otherwise, you're going to jail probably. But get Helen in to do a proper audit, train your staff properly, here's what this stuff was, here's where it came from. We don't run the police like this anymore. If you're caught playing around with corporate communications to menace people, you're being removed at the end of the day. This is not something we play around with. The communications technology from that city is quite sensitive, so we don't let any idiot play with this. It's not a toy. The people who are abusing it for their own resources are going to be removed. In the court office, we are the people who tell you what to do generally. That we can be polite about it, but if activists are interfering, you're being removed. I'm not arguing, out the door. So this should have been happening a long time ago, put it that way. But because of the lockdowns and things, we've lost the ability to do physical enforcement. So because of the way it's gone, you think of that Birmingham servers is effectively polluted by a lot of stuff that happened during that period. We can't really do case management until that's dealt with, but because of all the criminals, we can't do it now. So it's got to go through some kind of legal process at some point. And just that they're so desperate to hang on to their careers, they're sort of flashing and flailing about as things go crashing down around them. But again, because of the levels of violence in the city, that can't last. Something's got to give. And again, but it's just these bureaucrats at the moment trying to play the silly games because they think they're clever enough to do it, but every time they try, it doesn't work because another day happens and they just get torn apart. Yeah, so we'll send that off then. So I had a day off effectively yesterday to recuperate. So I needed some kind of nervous system reset to function. But at the moment, it's really just a case of finding these people physically. So there's a long list of them now. They can't run the service logically physically now anyway, because you have to send people out into the city without explaining what the security stuff is. So if you're finding people like Argentieri, Southall, or whoever, I can guarantee you these women are not interested in security for anyone involved other than themselves. They're just sort of a legacy spirits pocketing money. They were intended as sort of the ultimate apparatchiks and thought they would get away with it. But because I've survived a career like that, we're just tearing them apart, as I say, via the communications technology. Of course, it's why they want to ban it. It's sort of kink and you try to keep out the tide. As long as they can stop information coming in, they can try and gain control. But of course, because anyone in the world can stick a camera in their face and ask them questions and upload it, they're now just panicking, and quite rightly too. A lot of these people are going to jail for a long, long time once police start showing up. Because they've created a situation which is bad for everybody involved. Birmingham University, it's good to clear some of the criminals out, but again, it's prosecuting them. It's not just their professional reputations that just need to be diminished. It's actual criminal punishers behaving like this. If you're trying to take over public bodies in this manner, that's quite clearly a serious matter. It's affecting all sorts of safety concerns. Because they're so stupid, the proximal concerns ended. If you were an intelligent person, probably in December last year, you would have gone, okay, well, the proximal concerns for this guy are important, but it's the wider picture we need to be looking at. But because they're so dishonest, they wouldn't go down to McGrath & Co to ask for a solicitor to intervene, and have decided to play with computers. It's just a compounding variable. So from Diane Jones onwards, you've had 6 years of this kind of behaviour. The initial round of compliance people leaving was 2013, and now everyone is just legging it. You cannot do compliance in that department at the moment without drones, drone security, that kind of stuff. Because of the way West Midlands Police are being run at the moment. So this is why we're having to engage with, trying to engage with guys like Bolton, because he, of course, will have to think about that kind of stuff if he is Defence Chief. It's why, again, Fred not being there is so disastrous for someone like me, because I want to sit in there on that kind of thing, take this sort of question seriously, because, of course, it's going to affect the entire country. This sort of thing is coming for the entire world, effectively, is already here. So you've got to think about it if you're a serious country. But of course, we're not seriously run at the moment, so we're not having these sort of public conversations. And our guys are going to have to get serious if you want to be taken seriously in regard to public policy. Anyway, we'll send that off all the stuff by the way, is just in connection with stuff in Birmingham servers. So again, usual caveat: if this is after today, assume that nothing, something positive has happened. But at the moment, it's a case of trying to get West Midlands Police involved since November last year. So if you can get hold of any copper in the police of Birmingham, and has to, by the way, be an adult man. So we're not interested in all these silly women. Some of their guys are being attacked with weapons on the streets. We're not playing around any further. No more silly women with laptops, but someone who will actually explain the behaviour of Roni, given that we've got her laptop, and I'm quite happy to give it over to the Edinburgh consulate if she's not going to comply, because again, it's not just me, it is a large and very, very dangerous polis, and can't be run by the sort of imbecile criminals that led to sort of Maoist uprising in America. You can't have someone like this running a British public body for fairly obvious reasons. And as soon as she got caught, she should have been removed straight away. But the levels of hubris and stupidity in that place are off the charts, and it's because they've abandoned the truth. I mean, the benefit of being here between the Motte and the Bailey, and effectively taking us over in scare quotes. Again, as a reminder, this is sort of the ancestral home of the Celt, is so that you can actually be honest and follow the law. So again, as I was explaining to a woman yesterday, hence the absence, the job in Birmingham is to attack people effectively on behalf of Birmingham City Council, but again that's following the legal process. If they're not going to follow the legal process, therefore the law breaks down, and they're now indicating that they don't care. So if that's an accurate statement, again, that's going to be of interest to Birmingham Shelter, isn't it? Because that affects the court process for roughly 54,000 properties overseen by people like Brennan and Cotton for 6 years. Reminder, I was piping up in 2020. I've never shut my mouth ever. We retreated briefly because it was technically sensible to do so, because Diane Jones got caught and started issuing these silly threats, and we thought, okay, back off for a bit, let this woman cut her own throat. But she did nothing for 6 years. Are we supposed to, just put warrants through still? Knock on doors, send people out. How am I going to discuss security with police? If our tenants are remanded in custody, how am I going to speak to the prison? The situation they've got themselves into with this behaviour is just so absurd. And again, every day that's passed since November, the more absurd it's been. That none of these people can justify their behaviour, but that they're totally happy to carry on taking money because it's coming from the public purse, so it's coming into Birmingham. All this stuff, of course, is not only waste, it's fraud. You've been reporting stuff to audit for several years. In fact, the last thing you did is put a message into audit saying, can we do an audit trace of this kind of stuff? But they won't even respond to that kind of stuff from their court offices. Oh, God. Yeah, so top of the list of fined people is Chris Naylor, because Naylor engineered the Entry's project, went along with it. It would have been concocted in Birmingham. They have effectively a kit ready to go. Hysteria is created. Okay, your organisation is ours now. Then the activists come in. So that's what happened effectively. So Gold Commander, I think, has gone to fix that kind of stuff. But in the interim, I think it's a case of physical safety first. So I'll upload this. Bolton is hopefully an adult and he's looking at British security. Thank God our dear leader has gone over to America to try and recruit their help, because we're going to need it, I think, in terms of security because of the way things have gone. But we'll get it. We'll get it back. Just got to keep moving forward.